So, so far so good. And I think we had a lot of like really deep dive technical topics with engineering, scripting, demos, and code. And the next topic is going to be pretty interesting because it's going to be a bit in a higher level of technology. And we have Chris with us, and he's going to talk about the Power Platform. So let's wait for him to connect. Hey, Chris.
Hey, Gajik, how's it going, man? You okay?
It's going. Yeah, it's going
Cool.
pretty good and very
Awesome.
interesting topics. And I guess those people who are like less coders are cannot wait to see some magic that Power Platform can do for us. So thanks for accepting the invitation and taking part in the conference. So I will give you a moment to introduce yourself and
Uh,
we can start the topic.
awesome, man. And thank you very much for having me. Yeah, this is a topic that's pretty close to my heart. And by the way, I know a lot of the other sessions haven't been in English. I'm going to try and keep it as try and be as clear as possible. But yeah, my name is Chris Huntingford. I'm a South African person living in the United Kingdom, and yeah, I focus primarily on Power Platform. I used to work for Microsoft for a couple of years. I'm a Microsoft MVP and also a fast track recognized solution architect. So I've done loads of stuff with the technology for a long time. So hopefully I'll get you all excited about this. And I know a lot of you are very deeply technical. That's good because we could use your help. So yeah,
Absolutely.
thanks so much for having me.
Cool. So it was good to hearing from you, and we can't wait to see what you have prepared for us today. So the
Cool.
stage is yours.
Thanks, man. And do me a favor, if my sound cuts out at any point, just wave at me or something and I'll switch mics because every now and then it does it. Cool.
Perfect.
Thank you so much. All right, everyone. Yeah, very excited. So we're going to be talking about building or developing enterprise solutions with low code or the Power Platform. If you do want to get in touch, please go right ahead. I work for a company called ANS. And yeah, we focus on quite a lot of low code stuff. If you want to get in touch, just fire over a message on Twitter or LinkedIn, whatever works best for you. I'm always happy to connect. And also very happy if you leave any comments. I'll do my level best to answer questions. I have got my eye on the stream as well, right? So I can see if you all comments. So please go right ahead. Okay, cool. So today's session, we're going to be looking at a couple of things. Obviously, I've done the introduction, which is good. That's a great start. We'll be looking at the definition of low code very quickly. I am going to be honest with you. I don't think low code is the right terminology for what we do. So yeah, we'll change that up a little bit. We're going to talk about what we can make and also where we could really use developers. Now, I used to write code. I used to work for a company called Borland who wrote a software tool called Delphi. And that was good fun. I learned how to program. It was really good fun. And now I don't do it as much because I use low code. But yeah, there's a lot of room for developers. And then I'll look at the questions as well. I'll do my best to try and answer questions as I go. And yeah, thanks so much for joining us. So let's get going. Right, what exactly is low code? Now, this is pretty important. Some of you may think low code is just a way of building things without any code, which is kind of as the name suggests, but I don't agree with that. Anyway, I'll explain why later, okay? But what has been reported is that as we've been growing and as the world has been progressing and as we've been transforming the way we work, there's been a big request for solutions to be built. And there's a demand from lots of businesses to make stuff. And as an example, I used to be a network admin. I used to be a developer. Now I'm more of a consultant, and I lead the practice at ANS with my friend Jason Earnshaw on the low code side. And what we've discovered is so many businesses need lots and lots and lots of solutions or apps being created. But unfortunately, there aren't as many skilled developers out there that can write code. I was watching the talk before and honestly blew my mind. I was like, wow, I need to get more advanced in Azure because that was a really great kind of show of what could be done. But what Microsoft have decided to do is kind of democratize some of those tools, which is pretty good. So the whole idea is around supply and demand. How do we make stuff quicker to solve more business problems? Now, there's something that's important here. A lot of people think when we talk about low code, we're talking about like little toys, right? And that's not the truth. You can actually build thousands of different solution types with low code platforms. Okay. So very important. Don't think it's a toy. The second thing is a lot of folks think, hey, low code will just be a fad. Like, think of it as like a short-term solution or a tactical thing. And that's not true as well, right? Low code is here to stay. It's actually been around since about 2012. I think Forrester coined the term. And what's interesting is a lot of you already use low code platforms. Okay. So it's here to stay. It's not going anywhere. So we best learn how to deal with it. And that's why I'm here, right? To try and help you understand that. So this is where it starts getting interesting. A lot of stats have come out, and Gartner have said that 70% of new applications developed will be by organizations that use low code technology. Now, my developer friends, don't worry. This doesn't mean anything about anyone replacing you. I promise you now, we need you even more. And I will get to why, okay? But effectively, what this means is that a lot of solutions that are going to be built are going to be made by people who don't necessarily know how to write code. So that's pretty key. And this is evidence of the fact that low code is not going anywhere. Now, Microsoft did something very clever. Okay, and I'm going to demystify some of this for you, hopefully. And looking at some of the discussions that we had before, very Azure heavy, lots of scripting, which is good, right? That's excellent. But Microsoft had to come up with an example, or come up with a solution to how to provide low code tools to people. So they came up with the Power Platform. And you might have heard these words being thrown around, very normal. And the Power Platform is a collection of what I call pre-built digital building bricks. Okay, so some of you might have played Lego. If you take a look at my screen real quick, you can see I've got a little Lego Power BI dashboard that I made. It's a little bit dirty, but yeah, pretty good, right? And think of it as like pre-built digital bricks that you can use to create things really quickly. And I'm going to demo you something actually shortly. I'm going to build you an app in 30 seconds. Okay. I'm also going to build you a Power BI report in 30 seconds, and I'm going to make you an automation in 30 seconds. So I'll do all of that in roughly 2 minutes. It's very exciting. But these tools exist in the Power Platform. Now, obviously, you've got Power BI, which is your analytics tool that gives you the view of all the data and that can make sense of data. You've got what Microsoft have called Power Apps, which is your application development platform. A lot of folks think that a Power App is just effectively a little app, but actually it's also a line of business solution. And there's stuff in there that you can really build out to focus on mission critical solutions. You've got Power Automate. Power Automate's a bit like the wind. You don't see Power Automate run, but you can see the results of it. It's kind of like the wind blowing in the trees. So you might see the trees rustling, but actually, that's the wind. And in the background, very similar, Power Automate does the same thing. It automates mundane tasks. My favorite thing about Power Automate is it takes the robot out of the human. Okay. It gives me time to do the things I want to do rather than having to do things like mundane data capture, which, believe me, I don't like. The other one that they've included in the interaction layer, and that's the layer at the top, is Microsoft Power Virtual Agents. Very cool piece of functionality. So if you don't want to make an app, you can build a bot. And a bot allows you to interact with it using text and free text and speech in multiple languages instead of using an app, right? So a lot easier to interact. And then the most recent addition is Power Pages, right? A lot of folks say, hey, how do we give this Power App stuff to external people to use? And you can use Power Pages for that, okay? So it's already a website. The most important layer in the Power Platform is the bottom layer, and that's the data layer. So really about, number one, storing data, having the ability to store data, and that's in a tool called Dataverse, right? And actually Dataverse is made up of a bunch of Azure components. So you've got SQL Elastic pools, you've got blob storage, Cosmos DB, and Dataverse is just a service layer that lives on top of it, which I'll actually show you, right? It's not pretty, but it works super well. So I can build out highly relational data structures without having to worry about things like referential integrity, security, and all of that, because it's baked in. You've got AI Builder. Awesome tools. So Microsoft have taken the AI framework that they've got in Azure and democratized it into the platform. So don't worry, we aren't going to get attacked by Terminators, and we're not in the Matrix. No robots are going to fly through the clouds, and our toasters aren't going to transform into a death machine. It's really just about taking artificial intelligence and making our lives easier. And we can actually even write words to build apps and flows as well. PowerFX, which is effectively the programming language or the development language, it's a bit like using Excel, right? So if you've ever written an Excel formula, it's really just a free language that allows us to interact with these layers in the platform. You've got these things called managed environments, which provide governance and control when building all these things out. And then finally, the most important one is what we refer to as data connectors. So instead of having to write a connection to an API or build your own API, you can actually use data connectors that are pre-built to connect to data both outside the platform and within. So think of it like this. The top layer is the interaction layer. It's the layer that allows you to interact with the data. The bottom layer is the data layer, and that's where the most important stuff comes from, and that's data, right? Now, some of you are going, oh, Chris, sounds like you're from Microsoft marketing. No, I'm not, but I can tell you a story, right? And many moons ago, Microsoft had this thing called the three clouds. And the three clouds were business applications or Dynamics 365. You had Microsoft 365, and then you had Azure, which is probably where a lot of you on the call really are interested, right? And what I found very interesting was that they kind of consolidated all of that into the Microsoft cloud. So the single cloud, an integrated stack. And a lot of folks think, oh, Power Platform is a separate thing, but it's really not. All Power Platform is, all the low-code tool sets are, is just functionality that comes from those other clouds. So from Microsoft 365, we got Power BI, we got Canvas Apps, which is a Power App type, and we got PowerFX. From Dynamics 365, the business applications layer, we got Power Pages, Dataverse, which is the cloud-based relational data storage facility, and the icon does look like a ceiling fan, and Power Apps model-driven apps. And then from Azure, we got all the really chunky stuff. We got things like AI Builder, which is democratized functionality from Azure that lives in the cloud and brought in through the platform. Azure also contributes a lot to PowerFX. We have Power Automate. Every Power Automate that you see is effectively a logic app. It's pretty much the same thing, right? Power Automate's more driven to citizen developers. You have Power Virtual Agent, which is a democratized version of the bot framework, yeah? And then obviously the Azure function, the Azure components underneath Dataverse. So again, Elastic Pools and Cosmos and Azure Blob and all of those great things that support that layer. So that's all cool, good and well, but what can we make? What are the types of things we can build? First and foremost, it is important to understand that when we talk about low code and the Power Platform, there are two streams, two things you need to remember. The first thing is you are part of a wider ecosystem, okay? You are using lots and lots of Microsoft controls and components and functions and things like that. So we need to be able to bring it together. Low code and Power Platform, in my opinion, is one of the only things in Microsoft that spears through all of the areas and allows use for all of the different areas. And as an example, right now, today, I'm building an app that connects up to SQL, and I'm kind of bringing data into that app from SQL to interact with it, right? But I'm also bringing in data from Dataverse. So you're a part of an ecosystem, and there needs to be governance and compliance and security. The next one is the use cases. So what can you make? What can we build with this thing? Like, what problems can we solve? So let's demystify this very quickly. A lot of people think, again, that Power Platform is all about this thing called citizen development, which is far from the truth, actually. And a lot of people think that you can only make simple things, which is, again, far from the truth. You can build everything from a very simple solution, a very simple app, which I will show you next, all the way through to something highly complex that manages vast areas of your organization. So don't think that this is a toy, right? This is massively important. And in fact, tools like Microsoft Dynamics 365, the customer engagement tools like marketing, sales, service, and field service are actually built on Dataverse. Those tools are Power Apps. They are made of the same digital bricks as the Power Platform. So that's all good and well. Let's have a look at something, right? So let's quickly demystify this. A lot of the time people think, hey, Chris, we only get to build basic stuff with the low-code platform. We want to just do simple tasks. Well, you can do that anyway, right? Which is really good. So what I'm going to do is, you can see over here, I've got a very basic SharePoint list. Some of you will recognize this. I'm hoping a lot of you do. And SharePoint's a tool we use in our daily lives a lot. And in fact, what's pretty important is that most of the data in the Power Platform is actually on SharePoint. But here's something interesting. You can see it says integrate at the top. I've got Power Apps, Power Automate, and Power BI. So I can very easily simply create an app, call this test ESG. And yes, I'm building something live for you. I don't think that's the wisest thing to do in a demo. No, it is. It's awesome. I love it. So this is going to build me an app. I'm not doing anything. You can see I'm holding my hands up, nothing up my sleeves, right? This is making me an app from scratch. It's actually using AI to build me the solution, which is really cool. So as an end user, I can go ahead and make an app without having to think too much, and share that with the rest of my team, and they can start capturing data into that SharePoint list instead of using the flat user experience you see here. So this is something that's very fun for me. Microsoft are working on actually allowing free text, so you can type in free text. You can, and that will build the app. You can see I've got my run layer. So very easily I can go ahead and say, hey, let's capture a record. So we'll call this ZZZ1234 test. I'm doing that so I can sort by it. Chris and HUN. And I can go ahead and select cities from the list that I've got, countries, whatever I'd like. I can go ahead and save that record. When I type in over here, test, it'll pick up any records over there, or ZZZ. So somewhere there we go, test ZZZ1234. And automatically that has actually landed up in the database in the background over there. There's the record. I made that for you in 30 seconds. Yeah. So that's an application. Very easy. I can go ahead. If I really wanted to, I could share this with the rest of my organization. So I could say, hey, I'm going to share this with Gulshan, right? And he'll be able to go and edit this. Or I'm going to share this with David, and he'll be able to go and capture data, right? Which is pretty good. The next thing is, well, what if I want to build an automation? Every single time where I capture a record, it sends me an email. And look at that. You've got all of these amazing flow options, and these are templates. So I can build out my automations using the flow functions, the flow options in here. You can see over there, I can go ahead and create a flow. And what they will eventually do is go into the flow designer. It's already pre-built everything for me. So all I need to do literally is go and edit, make sure everything works, and put in an email address. We're going to go, it's going to send an email to me. So I've built that flow in 30 seconds, right? So watch what happens. If I go ahead and I say, we're going to just do a quick refresh. If I go into my app and I go ahead and capture another record, let's run it. And we'll say test, oops, test 1, CH, I'm just putting in random stuff. Great, I've saved that, and what will actually happen is that flow will fire in the background, right? Eventually, okay? Now that's pretty key because I can add those automations relatively fast. I can build an app relatively fast, and that's definitely something that I've broken, right? So that's a great example of what you don't do in a demo. Anyway, you get the general idea. So let's just go back into the flow, and eventually it'll run, right? The last one I wanted to show you is an integration. So another thing that I can build is a Power BI report. So as a citizen developer, I can click one button and it'll generate a report for me within a couple of seconds, okay? So instead of me not understanding the data fully, I can quite easily go ahead, generate that Power BI report, and they'll be visible to me right away, okay? So I can slice and dice data and say, hey, let's check it out by dates. Oh, look at that. Wow, I had a big drop off in 22, but lots of interest in ESG in 2021. All right. So that's really good for me. I can build those things relatively fast as a citizen dev. Very interested to see. There's my flow run. You can see it ran 32 seconds ago, and it will have actually sent me an email, which I will then grab, obviously, in my inbox, and that'll tell me the information about the record I've captured. So in summary, I've built you 3 things. Number 1, I built you an app that allows me to capture data directly into a list. Number 2, I made you an automation that sends an email to somebody every time a record is captured. And number three, I've built you a Power BI report that analyzes that data. Now that's really good for citizen devs. What about the mission critical stuff? What about the stuff that's really important? And this is where it starts getting really tricky, right? What about something that if it breaks, my organization is in trouble, okay? What about something that's focused on the whole enterprise? So now, obviously, I'm not going to build you something that's live right now for that, but I can show you some things. So what I went and did is, again, in my demo screen over here, I've got a team site. Look at that, all these team sites, right? And these manage all of my, my tools in the platform. Now, yes, crazy enough, I study planetary sciences, so geology and geophysics right now, which is really good, and astronomy. So we study rocks, and I have a mineral matcher that my friend made, very cool. But I've got vehicle inspections over here. But a big one that's mission critical for me is actually around, and I've just lost it, HR. So how do I manage and maintain all of the people in my business logging requests and queries and things like that? And actually, that's really important, right? HR is a mission critical thing. If HR breaks and stuff breaks, what do we do? So what we are going to do is I'm going to give you a quick peek as to what this looks like. You can see over here that most of my people in my organization should be using Teams as an example. I could surface these apps and flows and things up in SharePoint or whatever you'd like. Goodness, if you even wanted to embed them in Slack, you could, okay? So if I go to general, you can actually see that I might want to log an HR issue or a hardware issue, so I can do that directly through a Microsoft form. I can go and check out the issues that have been logged. So all of the issues that have been logged are specific to me. I'm just going to quickly ditch that, and you can see it's a Power BI report again. And you can see most of the issues are actually pending for hardware, right? And you can see that these are the specific places that have been logged, right? Pretty cool. Okay, so it gives me a whole value, and it's actually telling me the hardware value of the issues. What I also did was I built an app launcher. So all of my users, my business, if there's like 50 or 5 million, whatever it is, can log in and they can go and use the HR portal. Now remember, please excuse me. Please forgive me. Got a bit of a cough. Also, I'm not very good at making things look pretty. I'm very functional, so I'm a data person. Now, what I could do if I wanted to log the HR issue a different way, I could quite easily go and log it in my issue management, or I could go and check out my benefits from my company. So you can see over here, I've got a pension. Over there, I've got a gym membership. Yeah, got to keep fit, everyone. And I can see these are all the contributions I've made. I can also go and check out my reporting. Now, this is only for me. Wow, look at all that, eh? Doing pretty well from a savings perspective. That's my car allowance. So this is my little app that I've written in the background. And I can kind of drill in and see how much have I got in pension, how much is my car allowance moved up to, and what is my gym membership? Look at that, right? So very, very simple type of stuff. And I've built these with low code and no custom code, okay? Now, that's great, right? You can have loads of different types of solution. Another one that I built was a risk assessment solution. And if you over here, have a look over here in Power BI, this is my risk assessment dashboard. So every time I want to build an app or a solution, I have to capture it. And effectively that goes into the back office, and the back office actually track and manage what I'm making. So if I go into my info security risk assessments and I view one that's I've captured over here, you can actually see that this is a model-driven app. This is still a Power App. It's a model-driven Power App. And once that loads, you can actually see that I've got all my collaboration and communication around that risk assessment. I've got a process that I'll take that risk assessment through internally. And once I'm done, I can tell the user or the maker or the developer, and I can say, hey, you're ready to build that app, rock and roll, go right ahead, okay? So there's lots of really great things you can do with the platform. However, there are some things to think about, my friends. And what is most important here is where do the developers come and fit in? Because I've just shown you a bunch of stuff where I don't need to use code. Now, I'm hoping some of you on this call have played Lego before or built Lego before. Something interesting, I've got kids, right? So obviously I make lots of Lego. Also, I make Lego for myself, right? And checked out this bad boy. Finished it pretty recently. Lots of bricks in this thing, right? Lots of little Lego bricks. And unfortunately, that was quite hard to build, right? But I loved it. Okay. So something I've discovered is that, yes, I love building things with pre-built bricks, but what about where I don't find a pre-built brick that I need to make something amazing? Okay. What happens with that awesome Lego spacecraft I found if I couldn't find a brick that fit in? Can I phone Lego and say, hey, Lego, make me this brick specifically for my spacecraft? The answer is no, they won't. Now think about that in an organization where you have lots of people making things, but not everything fits every time. I mean, Microsoft can cater like for 60% of the things that people will want to make. But what about that 40% where people can't just make them? So I always say to folks, think of it like this, right? When you're going through a process of making something, there's some good things that you can buy off the shelf, right? So you might work in a retailer and you want to buy a retailer app. That's awesome. Go ahead and buy that app, all right? But also you might want to just custom build it. And actually, you know what? I'll tell you, I am an admiration of developers because it's often you don't find people that can make stuff and write code, okay? And in this world, so many people are just focusing on not learning how to code. And it's sad because I would love to get back into it as well. But there's a lot of people that build things. And in low code, there's all this opportunity. So we can make pretty much anything we want. But let me tell you, from experience, this slide is incorrect. And I'll tell you why. Because yes, there might be a lot of opportunity for low code, but not every digital brick works every time. So if I want to build something special, I can't always just plug in a Power Automate flow like I did in the first demo. I can't always just turn something on and hope it's going to work. And my friends, that's where we look at custom dev, okay? We need people to build out these pre-built digital bricks for us. So as somebody that doesn't write code anymore, I have to go to my friends, like my friend Carl Cookson, and say, hey, Carl, dude, I don't know how to write this thing, man. You know how to do Java and all this jazz, and you know how to write plugins and use C#. Could you make me this thing? And there's a lot of opportunity. As an example, I use a lot of custom connectors. So I custom connect to a lot of APIs outside of the platform, okay? Let me tell you, the security and understanding those payloads is really hard. Like I've had to work really hard to understand those. And it's starting to get very interesting because the more I learn about Power Platform, the more I need developers to help me build things because it doesn't just work every time out of the box. I really wish it did. Excuse me, but it doesn't. And the fact of the matter is that with custom code, we really, really need to embrace the fact that people that know how to write code can build us those components that we can reuse again and again. I'm going to tell you a secret. I know I'm going to run slightly over. I'm going to tell you a secret. One of the things I hated and I still like really struggle with is, and this is when I was writing code with in Delphi, I hated making forms. My worst thing was making a form and connecting it to a database. It was like the most painful thing in the world. And I still don't really like it that much. I'm not a guy that makes things look good. I'm a guy that is a functional person. As you can tell, I have very little taste. Look at the room around me, right? But what we're trying to do is give developers their time back and say, hey folks, start building stuff that really people can't build and understand because developers are very smart people, okay? Now, I'm not saying citizen devs aren't or, general folks aren't. I'm saying that they're clever in different ways. And unfortunately, learning that skill of coding is quite tough. So the three things I want to leave you with, whether you're a pro coder, somebody who loves to write code, or somebody that's just learning the platform, there's something in this for everyone, okay? And I'm learning as well every day. So yes, it is super easy to make solutions very quickly, like you saw in the first demo, but please remember that it's not always that simple. It's never that simple. I'll tell you what, I've delivered a lot of enterprise solutions and I always need somebody that can code. It's not always that simple. So what we do is we use Microsoft's set of pre-built digital bricks. Like I showed you my dodgy little Lego Power BI dashboard there. We use Microsoft's pre-built bricks to solve 60 to 80% of the problem, as much as we can. And then we start knocking on the developers' doors saying, hey, please everyone, would you help us? We need to have this component built or this custom connector built. And there is a huge amount of opportunity in the platform. So low code, although it is going to be responsible for a large amount of solutions being built, it gives developers more time to do the things that they're good at and they like. Okay, so I wanted to leave you with that. If there are any questions, please stick them in the chat. And I just really wanted to say thank you to the team that's running the conference. It's awesome to be here. I get to speak at a lot of these, and I think when it's developer conferences, I get a little bit nervous because I'm like, okay, devs don't always like low code, so you kind of have to teach them about like, hey, it's not only just low code, right? So Gadget and everyone, thank you so much for having me. I honestly really appreciate the time.
Chris, we appreciate your time and thank you so much for the talk. And actually, I was going to make the same summary as you did at the end when you said that these kind of tools allow developers focusing on the interesting stuff. Because one of the like the worst complaints in all of the developments teams that I have seen is that people say it's not interesting. We are doing the same thing over and over again. And as you say, like building a forum, it's like 40-year-old thing that still needs a development, but we can automate that, and it's beautiful.
Yeah. So, thanks, man. It's really something. When I was working at Microsoft, that was the top question that came up every time. It's like, why are you taking developers' jobs? I'm like, no, we're making more jobs, man. So yeah, it's quite cool.
And you need developers to build such tools.
I saw an interesting thing that. Yeah. So, how do you start your low-code journey for Power Platform? It's a really good question, right? There's a couple of sites on Microsoft Learn. I can quite easily drop those in the chat. There's some really good ones that you can go and visit. I would recommend starting from scratch, just learning the fundamentals. I know developers like to skip that stuff, but just learn the fundamentals and what the platform can do first, and then move out into the codey bits. That's what I found works really well. So I'll stick some links in. Thanks for the question.
Yeah, and one last question that I might have is that, like, I see that you are like a fully Microsoft stack company, and you can kind of reuse all of the existing infrastructure. And is there something that Power Platform has to offer for the companies who are like not exactly fully Microsoft? Let's say they are based on the Google platform or on some other platforms. So what can Power Platform offer for those companies?
Awesome question. Yeah. So this is why I said in the data layer, the connectors are the most important thing. One of my favorite demos to do is connecting to Google Cloud. And you don't even need to have an Azure license, right? You can basically have a Power Platform license and connect up to Google. You can connect to Salesforce, SAP, Oracle. So the example is, my favorite one is SAP. It's a phenomenal product, so deep, but sometimes the user interface isn't super great. So you can just build a Power App on top of that and connect to the data. And that's where those connectors are really important. And I would say for pro devs, anyone that loves to write code, check out those connectors because you can build your own. And for non-pro devs, people that don't like that, go and look at the apps because you can literally build out user interfaces like this. So yeah, definitely worth looking at.
Thank you so much, Chris. And I really appreciated the talk. And I can say that many people are going to dive into this a bit deeper and save a lot of time because that's the most valuable resource that we have, right? And hope you enjoy the rest of the day. And we hope to see you again, either as part of this conference or in Armenia. So if you ever arrive to Armenia, ping us. We will organize a really nice trip for you.
Oh, man, I'd love to. And thank you so much. And I hope you all have an awesome conference and see you all soon.
Thank you.
Bye. Cheers, everyone. Bye-bye.